A battle over the Alamo, how a plan to overhaul the Texas Shrine is sparking a new fight to stop the changes.
You'd want to make sure that this data is properly protected.
New concerns over the security of your credit card information when you drive on Texas tollways. We investigate coming up. A push for change as a new challenger targets a longtime congressman.
Having 8 terms in Congress is actually something I think that should make people not vote for him, let alone be a reason to vote for him.
But the incumbent is fighting back and making his case to stay in Washington.
When I give my word to do something, I do it. When I tell people I stand for something, I stand for it.
We'll look closer at a Central Texas race that's getting nationwide attention. Hello, and thank you for joining us for State of Texas. I'm Josh Hinkle. When you go to the polls in November, a race for Congress will be near the top of your ballot. You're probably starting to see commercials for those candidates. That's the case in one district that's getting attention beyond Texas. U.S. House District 31 covers all of Williamson County and most of Bell County. It's been held by Republican John Carter since 2002. This race could be a gauge of whether the so-called blue wave exists here in Texas, where longtime Republican districts see a surge of interest for younger Democrats, often women. In District 31, the woman on the ballot is MJ Hegar, a decorated veteran of the war in Afghanistan. Our Phil Prazen spoke with Hegar to get perspective on her run for Congress.
What is Congressman John Carter doing now that you think you can do better?
I think that the people of this district are hungry for someone to represent them by engaging with them and collaborating with them and talking with them and taking meetings with them, holding town halls and answering questions instead of kind of ruling from DC on high, and recognizing that this is not my seat that I'm going to be occupying, it's their seat, and that I work for them. I think people are hungry for that.
You kind of paint a picture that he's out of touch, but how do you know that?
So a couple things. He hasn't held a town hall in 5 years. He holds these kind of mock town halls where the questions are pre-screened and selected and the audience is controlled, and that's not really a town hall. You know, when I co-founded the Combat Integration Initiative to make our military stronger by opening all positions up for competition to the other half of the population, I was meeting with people from both sides of the aisle. My organization was meeting with people from both sides of the aisle. The organization lives on now that I've moved on to other things, and he still has not met with any member of that organization. I mean, I think he's probably a very nice man. I've still never met him, but I think he's acting as if he's already retired. In the military, we call that road, like retired on active duty, and that's how he's behaving.
What would you be pushing for healthcare policy change?
I've been the recipient of 3 single-payer models. 2 of them have not worked, and 1 of them did. And I'm going to keep that in mind when I'm reviewing any models that come across my desk that are up for approval. I'm not going to vote as I'm told. I'm going to vote in accordance with the values of the people in my district and also what's best for this country. So I do think we need to have a Medicare for all type model, as long as people are incentivized and companies are incentivized to continue innovating, that healthcare providers are incentivized to provide quality to their patients. Right now we have a healthcare system that incentivizes people to stay sick. And I'm not saying that there's, you know, that healthcare providers are bad, but the model doesn't incentivize getting the person healthier because you get less money from that person, you get less business from that person. So we need to talk about models that will incentivize health, talk about preventative care, protect people with pre-existing conditions and things like that.
When it comes to the question of legal status or citizenship status for people who came here illegally, where do you stand on that?
I think we need to have pathways to citizenship for people to be able to attain citizenship who are, you know, able to prove that they are contributing to our society and not, you know, committing crimes and things like that. And we have a lot of programs like that in place that are under attack, which I don't understand. People often want to say things like, do it the right way and get in line, and yet the people who are in line and trying to do it the right way get their legs cut out from under them. I'm thinking, for example, of people who sign up to serve in the military to become citizens, and then all of a sudden we have a rash of people getting their enlistments, you know, getting de-enlisted, and that doesn't make any sense to me.
And when it comes to gun laws, what would you like to see changed?
I am a firearm owner. I'm a military veteran. I've used weapons, you know, in the field. And I think that we need to protect our Second Amendment rights. And I think that the gun violence epidemic is the greatest threat to our Second Amendment rights right now. We need to do certain things that change the gun culture in this country, that only, reliable and responsible gun ownership is permitted. We have that culture around other things like vehicles. As a society, I'm old enough to remember the outrage of our constitutional rights when seatbelt laws came into fashion, and now most people will kind of shame you if you get into the car and you don't put on your seatbelt. I wish we could get there with gun ownership, because I think that's the only way to protect our Second Amendment rights.
Do your values line up with this district, and so how?
I think by definition my values line up with this district because I am this district. I moved to this district when I was 7 years old, fleeing a domestic violence situation with my biological father. My mom and my sisters moved here. I grew up in this district, met my husband in elementary school. This is a highly military district, and I served my country, which John Carter has not.
This district has voted for Congressman John Carter. He has been on the ballots and he has won for decades. And
I have voted for John Carter as well.
So why is this going to be different this time?
Because I am one of the people that Republican Party leadership is depending on to continue to vote for John Carter. And I am one of tens of thousands, if not more, people in this district that are tired of being told how to vote, tired of being told that they can predict how they're going to vote based on their socioeconomic status or their race. And they're looking for a better option. If I would take the extreme measure of quitting my job and running for Congress to provide us with better representation, I think enough voters are going to take the extreme measure of voting their conscience and voting for the person and voting for character over, 8 terms in Congress is not. Having 8 terms in Congress is actually something I think that should make people not vote for him, let alone be a reason to vote for him.
Congressman Carter fights back against Hegar's charge that he's not working for his constituents.
She doesn't know anything about me, and we've got eons of proof that I'm not out of touch.
Up next, we'll hear from Carter as he defends his record and makes his case to voters. You're watching State of Texas. National Democrats think they can flip a Central Texas congressional district, but history is against them. Congressman John Carter has held the District 31 seat since 2002. And as Phil Prazen shows us, Carter makes the case that he best represents the values of the district.
Why should voters here tonight, but also in the district, pick you over MJ Hegar?
Well, I think first off, I think voters here in the district know me very well. I've been representing some part of this district for a long time. I'm the same person I was first time I ever ran for office. I haven't changed. When I give my word to do something, I do it. When I tell people I stand for something, I stand for it. When people ask me to help them, I help them. When they want my opinion, I give them an honest, straightforward, non-politically correct opinion.
There's all this talk about this one's going to be closer than your normal races. Do you think that's true?
Well, my opponent has raised a lot of money outside of Texas and outside the district. In fact, I think almost all of her money is outside the district, and 90% of it is from California, New York, Boston, places like that. It's called the Blue Wave, and that's how she's raised her money, and she's going to have quite a bit of money.
She says you're out of touch, that you don't respond to your constituents like she would. What do you say to something like that?
Well, she doesn't know anything about me, and we've got eons of proof that I'm not out of touch. I come home on the plane every week. In the entire period of time, which is almost 16 years, I've been in Congress. I've spent 4 weekends in Washington, D.C., and all 3 of those were related to something I had to do for Texas.
How similar are your views to what the president wants to do when it comes to policy-wise?
So far, I've been very pleased with everything the president has done. I mean, he's done what this nation needed. We needed to get business back to work. And he put together a tax plan to give a tax raise to everybody, but more money's better off in Texans' pockets than in Washington's pockets, and we've done that, both at the business level and at the individual level. And that's why things are booming right now, and they will continue to boom. these onerous regulations created by Obama have been dissolved and gotten rid of. They were ridiculous to start off with, and they were, now people can plan ahead and say, I see success at the end of the pipeline, and they're going to work.
Do you think that the taxes and the regulations are the most important issues in your district, or are there other ones?
There's a lot more. The security of the border is a very important one, and the president's standing firm on that. People criticize his foreign relations, but look at the success. He's gotten Korea to the table. The European Union, who's been taking advantage of us trade-wise for decades, has come to the table. In fact, he's rattled their cages, and he's gotten their attention, and they're coming to the table. And that's all we ask, is a fair trade. And that's what the president's asking for. I think he's being successful.
I don't think I've ever asked you this before, but the border wall idea, are you for that?
I am. I am for barriers at places where they are required by those men and women who protect this country from people coming in.
Do you support or oppose, some type of pathway to legal status or citizenship for people who came here illegally that are living here now?
I oppose people who abide by the law being given the benefit of the law. I do not oppose giving the benefit of the law to people who break the law.
So I'll take that as a no.
That stands for everybody. Now, by the way, you asked about the president. What about the military? Our military was on the way to being a negligible force under Obama. And now the president, in 2 cycles, has got our military beefed up and given them the funds they need and pay raises for all of them.
Let me be cynical here, but for young people there who look at the deficit and say, can we afford all this stuff? Can we afford the pay raises and the beefing up of the military like we have?
It's always easy to talk about the deficit. It's, we had constant deficit spending and first reached $1 trillion under Mr. Obama. We are going to grow our economy, and if we look back at John Kennedy and look back at Ronald Reagan, we see that when you cut taxes, reduce regulations, we grow, and that growth helps with the deficit and helps because more people are paying taxes.
And last word of just, you put your record versus MJ.
I have a record, a good record. And I don't know what I know what she said she stood for in the primary. And she's one of those socialists who believes that we should have single-payer health care. She doesn't reduce the military. She said the golden age was Obama age. Well, that's what he did. So I'm going to assume she approves of everything he did, and I don't.
Of course, voters will have the final say in this race and all the congressional races around Texas. Remember, you have to be registered to vote by October 9th. Early voting starts on October 22nd. Election Day is November 6th. Changes are coming to the Alamo, but see why a plan for improvements has some lawmakers ready to fight to stop the changes.
We got to ask ourselves whether or not you're the kind of organization that we really want to do business with if they're going to have access to this kind of information.
We've revealed more than $1 billion in questionable late fees for drivers, sparked calls for a federal probe into the tollway system's contractor, and now we discover a security concern experts say could put your financial information at risk. We investigate this latest text tag trouble coming up. The company handling your money on the state's tollway system faces new scrutiny after our investigation reveals questions about the security of customers' financial information. We've told you about Conduent as we've investigated text tag billing problems over the past year. The company was one of several entities behind sudden, massive late fees in Texas and other states across the country. And most recently, we told you how our investigation helped spark calls for a federal investigation into whether Conduent is breaking the law. Now, investigator Brittany Glass is looking into an all-new problem that could involve your credit card account.
Yes, but let's be clear. This does not mean your account or even the TexTag billing system has been hacked or breached. What we do know is this. TexTag contracts with Conduent to collect your money when you pay for the tolls you're driving through. Like any company that processes customer credit card information, Conduent is required to be PCI compliant or payment card industry compliant. It's not a law, but it is a security standard meant to protect your financial information. Credit card companies enforce the rules on vendors like Conduent, which we've discovered has lost compliance with two major credit cards, Visa and MasterCard. Meaning if you paid a toll with one of those cards recently, this is a story you cannot afford to miss. When we first began investigating TexTag's billing problems last fall, Tiffany Edge reached out to us for help with unexplained late fees.
Bills getting later and later, not getting a bill at all. Calling customer service is a nightmare.
Edge links her Visa credit card to autopay when she drives through tolls.
If I'm giving you that information and I'm trusting you to take that money out of my account, then I'm hoping you're using every safeguard you've got to make sure nobody else has access to that information.
But after our latest discovery, she says that convenience is now a concern. Within days of TxDOT's executive director renewing TexTag's contract with Conduent this summer, the billing vendor lost its PCI compliance with Visa and MasterCard. Edge and other customers we've contacted say we're the first to notify them of this security issue.
They should be telling the public what's going on, especially if they're providing a road for you to use but charging you to use it.
This is important stuff, and we expect companies to take it seriously if they're going to have access to this kind of information.
Experts at the Center for Identity at the University of Texas tell us a company losing PCI compliance means customers lose the trust of safety for their personal information.
It's your name, your card number, the expiration date, the little CVV numbers on the back, the magnetic stripe information and the chip information that might be stored on the card.
So what happened? TxDOT tells us a transition at Conduent's data center delayed its compliance recertification. And as soon as they were notified of the situation, they immediately hired a third-party consultant to provide a security risk assessment of the TexTag systems to ensure there are no risks to their customers. And the credit card payment system continues to work as it should.
It matters what the banks and the credit card processors say. And right now they say that they're not compliant, which means there's some gap that needs to be resolved.
State Representative Tony Dale sits on the House Cybersecurity Committee and has 2 toll roads in his Cedar Park district. He says the credit card concerns we brought to his attention are yet another reason his constituents and drivers across Texas need a TexTag system overhaul now.
I can guarantee you I'll be filing several bills during the next session related to toll roads and how they work, and I know that there's a number of my colleagues that will be doing the same.
With a state agency, you would hope they have some of the safest safeguards against your information. It makes me very leery of making another payment through them right now.
You might have noticed these billboards or even TxDOT's website pushing people to sign up for a TexTag account to save big instead of just paying each toll individually by mail. Well, that incentive might also be putting you at more risk when it comes to this issue. Experts tell us PCI compliance is even more crucial for companies that store credit card information for recurring payments, like what's required to have a TexTag. Remember, we've reported TxDOT is in the process of purchasing software to run the TexTag system to hopefully have greater control over issues like this. But that will take time, so it had to extend the contract with Conduent for 2 more years. And yes, the contract does require Conduent to stay PCI compliant, and failing to do so could result in fines against the vendor. Conduent deferred all our questions to TxDOT, but we do know the company is working to get back into compliance, which will be a factor in deciding if there should be fines. Back to you.
Thank you, Brittany. Conduent operates toll systems in several states, including Florida, where lawmakers have already been calling for ending ties with the company. In fact, earlier this year, the Florida Department of Transportation responded to reports of a security breach where an error allowed dozens of its customers to have access to other customer accounts for hours. In that case, the affected customers were notified, and the issue was quickly resolved. Remember the Alamo. Now there's a political battle brewing over the Texas landmark. We'll look at the plan to overhaul the Alamo and who's fighting to stop the changes. An announcement last week has sparked a new battle over the Alamo. Land Commissioner George P. Bush signed off on a plan to overhaul Alamo Plaza in San Antonio. The proposal from the Land Office and the City of San Antonio calls for buying up surrounding properties, building a new Alamo Museum, and shutting down the public streets to preserve the original battleground. But it could also involve moving the granite cenotaph that stands as the gravestone for the Texans who died defending the Alamo. That part of the plan has some Texas Republicans up in arms.
When the legislative session begins in January, many legislators are ready to file bills to withhold state funds from the project and to take control of the Alamo out of the hands of the GLO.
The reimagined site would add exhibits on indigenous people and life before the famous battle. That's also stirring controversy for people who see the Alamo primarily as a shrine to the fight for Texas independence. Lawmakers approved $75 million for the plan last legislative session. The plan still needs approval from San Antonio's mayor. Thank you again for joining us for State of Texas. I'm Josh Hinkle. We'll be back next week to bring you an in-depth look at Texas politics.